Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience live viewer chat, updated card, finalized card, DraftKings ownership, and all of your questions. Remember, smash that like button for the video. And if you're not in the live chat, you're just watching the comment section, that's where you need to leave this. So smash the like button, leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section, and tell me who your one and done pick is for the Wells Fargo Championship for 2019, and you will be in a draw for 20 DK bucks. You're listening to this after the fact on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, 5-star review, something nice about the show, DraftKings handle, and you too will be in a draw for 20 DK bucks. A lot of fire on the Pat Mayo Experience feed so far this week. It's been like Insanity Week. Feinberg has been like the mellowest dude who's been on the show. It's kind of nuts. So I did a Game of Thrones recap. I mean, for those of you who enjoy Game of Thrones, it's me and Tommy G together in one room. So it's just us yelling at each other the entire time. I quite enjoyed the show. But the Kentucky Derby show that I did with Cam and Cust from late on Tuesday night, I recommend everyone go check that out. There's a whole bunch of giveaways in that show too. So go. I mean, it's been a year since Cam has been on the show. Always got to check out whenever Cam's on. He's doing horse noises. He's all fired up. He got me all fired up. He's agreeing with Cuss. He's like the only person on the planet who agrees with Cuss. So it's an odd dynamic. A lot of energy. I'll just throw that out there. Before I get to Reid Fowler from DK Live, I do want to go over my updated cheat sheet, which is up on my Facebook page right now, or if you hit the comment section, you can find that. And the Listeners League, the DraftKings Listeners League, we're not going to get the 100,000 for the PGA Championship, guaranteed with no break. I hate to tell you because this one just did not fill up fast enough. It's not even full right now. There's only 3,500 spots in it. But if we can get it done by like 5 o'clock tonight, maybe we can do that. So there's like 700 spots left. The link is in the description of this podcast or video, and it's in the comment section. So go enter the Pat Mayo Experience DraftKings Listeners League right now. My betting card for the week, I kept it pretty light, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't have the best grasp of this tournament. Played a whole bunch of first-round leaders, but a lot of them were 200 to 1 and beyond, so it's not a high investment. So I went to 11 this week for first-round leaders instead of the normal like 8 or so. But I kept in, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 guys over 200 to 1. So the investment on those guys is like the same as it would be for a 50 to 1 guy, or even a bit less, to tell you the truth, because there's a 250 to 1 guy in the mix with that. But outright winners, I was debating with Feinberg on Monday's show about Paul Casey and these guys at the top. I found a number on him at 25. I took it. So I bet Paul Casey. I do this to myself. So the last time he did miss a cut, he rebounded with a win. So that's nice. So I'm on Paul Casey. Patrick Reed, I think he just might get added to the card every week right now. He's at 40 to 1. You can find him a little bit higher odds, but the book that I use, that was the best number that I could find, is 40. I just think that he wins sometime in the next 3 months. So there's like 10 tournaments in those times, and you're going to get a better number than 40 to 1 at most places, especially majors. And the last time that the tour played at Bethpage Black, Patrick Reed was a winner, so it could be coming for him sometime soon. We know with him, he's either on or he's just kind of mucking around and making cuts and coming 50th. But if he's in it, I think he has a chance to win. He was runner-up at this course 2 years ago at the PGA Championship, so something to keep in mind that he's done well here after the renovations. And Enlist, I'm a dud, I'm a sucker. I each weighed those. I just sink money into this stuff. So that's where I'm going with those two. I played Mullenix at 110 to 1 and Alvaro Ortiz 1,000 to 1 with the top 5 each way. I also threw in a top 20 bet on him at 14 to 1. I did that on the site that I use that does not have dead heat rules. They're not applied. So even if like 8 guys are tied for 20th, you get the full payout on that. I recommend reading the rules of all these sites before you wager on them to understand what the different rules are like. The main book I use doesn't offer that feature, so I have to go to a different book in order to make sure that I guarantee myself a full payout on that number if you're going to do it. First round leaders, I got Kang, Mullenix, and Burns 80, 90, 90. Wyndham Clark 110 to 1. HV3, the local boy, 125 to 1. Wagner and Streb, 2 course history guys, 115. Maybe they can get a good round out of them. Then Straka, Konos, and Reeves 200 to 1. And Alvaro Ortiz, maybe he's good. Who knows? Maybe he can be a first round leader. He's 250 to 1. Those are all with the top 5 each way. My one and done was Paul Casey. Feinberg's one and done was Aaron Wise. And Cust, who's way out ahead of everyone, picked Jason Day last year at this venue. That was his only win of the season for Cust in the one and done. He's going back to Jason Day this time around. So what happened last year, as you'll find out on the Kentucky Derby show, is that Cust had picked the Kentucky Derby winner for like 4 straight years. And then he started releasing his one and done picks for golf. And last year, his pick in the Kentucky Derby came dead last, and he actually won in golf. So the curse works in mysterious ways. It seems over the summer months, it's on vacation as its full-time duty, can only focus on one sport at a time. So whenever multiple sports are going on, the curse can accurately predict one thing and then curse the other one. So you got to be able to, so Jason Day is either going to come down. If Jason Day misses the cut, bet on whoever Cuss picks to win the Kentucky Derby. So that's probably going to work out pretty well. Weather-wise, it looks amazing in Charlotte, to tell you the truth. I see no rain on the forecast, no wind gust over 12 miles per hour until late on Saturday. And even then, those guys might be off the course. So ideal conditions, no rain, no softness, no wave stack. So I wouldn't even bother looking at that. It's kind of out of the question this week unless you see something crop up late on Wednesday night. And whatever. If there's like wind conditions during the weekend rounds, I suggest everyone go to fantasynational.com, become a member right now. Not only can you get yourself situated for the PGA Championship, but you can use those live head-to-head stats as the weekend goes along for PM Showdown, weekend golf, live head-to-head wagers. It's the most valuable tool on the site and very easy to generate lineups if you want to go do that on DraftKings. So I recommend everyone, fantasynational.com. If you're watching the show and you're not a member of fantasynational.com, like give your head a shake. I don't know what you're doing at this point. Anyway, it's enough of me. Reid Fowler is on the line from DK Live. Hey, Reid, did you see I was on The Ringer yesterday?
I did. How'd that feel?
It was fun. I mean, I've chatted with House a whole bunch, just either through emails. He's contributed to the Super Shows a lot of the times, giving his picks. So it was cool to have. It was just cool to be on that platform. So I'm really banking on like it's going to be the first time that a lot of people ever heard me with my picks. So they're like, this guy's going to be the worst. But if like Luke List wins, it's going to be like this guy's a fucking genius, not knowing that I just bet the guy every week.
Yeah, exactly. And a good segue to that, he is my one and done. If you guys didn't know that, I use all of the elite players because in the beginning of the season, because I had a couple of goose eggs. Luke List made the Gups Corner one and done for me, which hopefully, right, if you just look at what you're talking about in terms of bets or just in general with his correlations or his finishings at these other places like Riviera and some of these other courses, Bay Hill, he does well. And so it's not just a FOMO bet. I think Luke List has a real chance here.
Yeah, I actually took him off of the FOMO list this week. He's just an actual, like, even if I didn't like Luke List, I'd be on Luke List. So that definitely means he's shooting 20 over par in the first round.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, long shots, you talked about it. I like that Wyndham Clark call. Roger Sloan, I mean, talk about how many miscuts this guy has, right? He's got about 3, I think, in the last 6. But again, at the Honda Classic, where you find another fast Bermuda-type surface, he played really well. At Riviera, I mean, he has these correlations where he's gotten to top 30 or top 25 in some of these. He's 350 to 1. I mean, I think, like you mentioned it early with Feinberg and these other guys, this is a spot where you take long shots. You know, it's not necessarily, yes, the field is strong, right? You have some of these top guys who want to get ready for Bethpage in a couple of weeks. But I think this is a really good time to get these long shots in and have a real good chance.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I kept the outright betting card pretty light for the week, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, Casey is the highest I go to at 25. I thought that was just a pretty good number based on all the other guys around him and like the 16, 18. I think that he should be on that level. So it's more of a value play for me. I like what he does tee to green. He doesn't really lack anywhere and he putts really well on these fast greens. So I can see him coming through there for me. And then, you know, a 40, a 60, an 80. Like I'm terrified at the top. Like Rory could go win this by 9 strokes, but at least with the investment that I had to make in a lot of these guys, it's not the end of the, like if I get wiped off the board this week, it's not like at Heritage where I got wiped off the board, but like I'll lose like 4 times less this week because the investment's just not there.
Yeah, and you mentioned it with Feinberg too. I mean, if you get these hedges on Sunday, where you can get some of these guys that are coming in at the same price tag you would have got, like the Paul Casey's, the Gary Woodlands, who I think Woodland's down to like 25 to 1 now. I think that's better. You have a little bit more bullets that you have obviously 3 days worth of golf to see where these guys are coming from. And again, we've seen it, the Green Mile, the 16 through 18. I mean, good luck trying to get even par. If you have a guy that you really like, some of these long shots that are coming to the Green Mile and they don't have they're a little shaky holes 1 through 15, you could easily see some of these guys come in towards the end of this tournament because those last 3 holes are extremely hard. So I like that strategy as well.
All right, let's get to the viewer chat. We got questions already loaded up in there. Again, smash the like button for the episode. It allows us to do the show every Wednesday at 1 p.m. to get you ready for the week. Or you can hear who I pick, and you're like, wow, that Mayo is awful at this. I'll just take the guy right next to him, and that's probably the play. But, oh, boy, if we're going to go to the chat, I mean, I need someone like John Smith to be first, not Tharusha Guntilake. I'm sorry, I'm not great at pronunciations of, I'm guessing an Indian name. I don't know. I'm just not good at pronouncing. I can't read really, so it's really tough for me. It says, any take on Russell Henley? He's made the cut this year at the Valspar and the Genesis. Yeah, but that's like basically all he's done.
Right.
I'm kind of off Russell Henley here. Just looking back, he's actually gaining on approaches now, but he's losing significantly off the tee. Even at the Heritage, which is a short course, lost a bunch off the tee. A long course like Valero, lost a bunch off the tee. You can't be losing strokes off the tee here. That's just not going to fly. And even his history at Quail Hollow, he's made a few cuts, missed a few cuts, but no good finishes. That I'm just not riding Russell Henley here.
Yeah, he burned me last week or at RBC. I liked him a lot in that spot and just didn't do it for me. And like you mentioned, right, this type of course, it doesn't really necessarily set up for him. We've seen him pop in some of these difficult tournaments like majors and whatnot. So if you want that correlation, but at that price tag of 7,300, KH Lee, Wyndham Clark, these guys around there are much more suited for my roster build as opposed to Russell Henley. So I'm out.
He also has, this is the benefit of getting into the chat early, is having multiple 10K players suicide this week. I don't actually think so. Now, you need to hit at the bottom, obviously. You need to get I'm going with Ortiz, Straka, and Konos as like the super duper cheap guys in a few of my lineups. But if you want to do that, I just think that's going to be such a contrarian build here that if you can fit in two 10K guys, like when I go and look at the ownership projections, we'll get to some of those in a second, that it's all of the 9K and 8K guys that are really rising to the top, or it's like a Rory and the rest lineup, or it's a Ricky and the rest lineup. Pairing the two together doesn't seem to be a thing a lot of people are doing. So if you can make it work, I actually think it's a very smart strategy. I just don't know the guys to do it with. And as I said on the Heritage Show, when I said you should probably fade Im and Ann, but I wouldn't do it because I'm a coward, I'm too cowardly to build my lineups that way.
I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, I think a guy you didn't mention is Jason Day, which for a lot of reasons people don't necessarily like because of what happened with his back and so on and so forth. But just even looking at his game, look, he won here. He won here on the heels of his short game, putting it around the green. And what we talk about with this, it's one of the hardest courses in terms of putting 0 through 5 feet of, just not necessarily making bogey or just getting those putts in or just two putting within that distance. And so when you look at Jason Day, a guy who's there at number 3 in terms of cost or number 2 in terms of cost, he's another person, right, that if you want to build contrarian, because like you mentioned, the Phils, even the Sergios to an extent, Tonys, these guys are all in that 9K range. If you're going to say, well, I'd rather build balance and have my lowest guy be in like the mid to low 7s. So I really like that build as a contrarian.
So, again, if you're a member of Fantasy National, you can access all the ownership projections for the week. I'm just looking at the top 5 right now, all the above $10,000 players. Rory is going to project to be the second highest owned guy on the slate at around 20%. It seems like people pay for Rory and then they pay down. And that opens up ownership in the high 9s and the rest of the $10,000 level because it's just so hard to have Rory and one of those other guys. So he'll come in as high ownership. I got Jason Day around 13%, Ricky and Rose around 16%, Hideki around 15%. So it's Rory, and it seems like everyone else is just taking one of the rest if they're building a lineup. The guy who's going to carry the most ownership, I think, of anyone on the slate is going to be Tony Finau at $9,300.
Yeah, and to that point, like again, this is a tournament that, yes, you want the elite players because Quail Hollow obviously is a track that has supported majors. We've seen key winners here like Rory and Jason Day. But even a guy like Sergio, man, if you can get Sergio at 5%, 10% ownership, like that is a crazy. This guy obviously is a major winner and he's elite with his ball striking. And if he can get some of these things going, getting a guy at 5% of his talent, I'm going to be definitely on that as opposed to eating that chalk on Finau. Everyone knows who follows me. I love Tony Finau, but if he's at 20+% and he doesn't give you a top 5 or he just doesn't win, which he hasn't yet, that's going to be eating a lot of ownership. Box out that 20%, go with Sergio.
So Sergio, around like 6% ownership I have him projected right now. The other guy who's super low coming in is Henrik Stenson. I don't actually have any of either, but those would be the contrarian pivot plays if you want to. I actually have a ton of Patrick Reed, like 55% of my lineups have Patrick Reed in them, and I have him projected at 8%. So if Reed wins, not only will I hit my outright, I'll be looking good on DraftKings this week. It's funny, like Byung-Hun An, I have projected. This is the one tricky part when trying to get the ownership projections like really down is, does the stat community just love Ben An? Because we all love Ben An. If you pay attention to any sort of metrics, Ben An always rates out really well. Is the public going to jump back on board after they were all over him at the Heritage? That's dicey to see. Like right now, I have him projected around 18%. I mean, that could go 5 points higher. That could go 5 points lower. I think he's a very tricky one to wrap your mind around this week.
And you can say the same thing about Jason Kokrak as well.
No, I feels like everyone's off Kokrak, to be perfectly honest with you. I think he'll come in at like 12%.
Which again is a testament to like what people are seeing, to your point, right? I mean, Byung-Hun An has always been around these leaderboards when you talk about, some of these tournaments. But again, in that 8K range, if we're talking about ownership, I think you have enough guys, and to our point, what we're saying now, even Sanjay M, you have enough guys in this 8K range that have done well, have popped on leaderboards. Lucas Glover. I mean, even Johnny Vegas has been, has been around these leaderboards. And so I think when you have as many guys as you do in this 8K range that people are seeing, not just the stat community, but people are seeing who are watching these tournaments, I think that does spread out the ownership. So playing Benny Ann or playing Jason Kokrak, who's been chalk for the last, 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe even longer, is better now as opposed to it was before. So I wouldn't be opposed to eat that chalk and match the field. Because these guys, I mean, it's hard to fade Kokrak, who's got how many top 10s in the last 6 or 7 tournaments, where he's just rattling off these top 10s. It could be like a Matt Kuchar type deal where he just gets those top 10s and cashes in, just doesn't win.
Yeah, I played the hard fade game this week, and this gets to Evan's question of 20 lineups. No, sorry, he said ignore that question, but where is the question right here? Oh, here it is from Eric. Sorry about that. Not Evan, Eric. What are you thinking more this week, a balanced build or jam with Rory? I went with the balanced build. In full disclosure, I faded a lot, like full out fade of a lot of the top guys. I have no Rory. I have no Ricky. I have no Day. I have no Hideki. Justin Rose is the only player above 10K that I use in that $9,000 range. I use Casey and I used Phil. And then in the $8,000 range, I used Reed. Those are my 4 core guys. I have some List. I have some Ann, of course. And then that upper 7 area is how I decided to build my lineup. So that's how I'm doing it. So the other way is probably the move. How do you think that you're going to structure the majority of your lineups? Because I do think that balanced build is the move.
Yeah, I again, this goes to the initial question of how many lineups, right? I think if you're doing, let's say you're doing the listener league, right, here where you have 3. I don't think it matters necessarily what you want to do with ownership, but I think balance is the way to go in this spot just because of what we just talked about. There's so many talented players where, let's say you have 2 guys that you are just hammering, like a Tony Finau or Jason Kokrak or Phil. If you can get these 2 guys in your lineup or these 3 guys in your lineup, you can spray a lot in this range because there are guys that, that can feasibly do well. Well, I will say this. With Justin Rose, he was a guy that I really, really liked at the beginning of the week. He just came out with the statement, and take it for what it's worth.
I saw it. You really going to believe?
Stupid,
are
right?
you going to believe that nonsense? It's like Jason Davey,
No.
oh, I wrenched my back. Now I'm going to go win.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, don't believe that. And if people do, be on something like that, right, where you look at these things to say, if there is a tiebreaker, find those little pieces of those nuggets of information. Watching this show, you'll find that a guy like Justin Rose, his game doesn't need to be exactly where it needs to be for him to win. And so that's the only other thing I will say about the top range is I'm taking the same stance as you. I'm not playing Ricky. I'm not playing Day. I'm not playing Hideki. I'm hammering Rose. I'm even looking at not playing as much Rory, even though this guy is clearly the number 1 golfer right now, not just on this course, but this season. I'm staying away from the 10K as much as possible.
Jackass, Casey, Rose, Finau, or Day to win it all. I mean, of those guys, I bet Paul Casey. He's my one and done, so Paul Casey's going to be my pick.
I got to go Finau just because he's my boy, but he never wins. So go with Pats, but I like Finau.
Pat, are you surprised the shortstop, Tim Anderson, hasn't fallen onto harder times? I mean, he did get suspended for a bat flip for no reason after Tim tweeted about him. So Tim's just trying to not leech off the name too much, I think. If Tim really went full blast in supporting the White Sox, Tim Anderson, I mean, the guy's career would be over. So that's how I would think about it. Anthony asks, should I use Phil or Woodland for my last spot? I like Phil this week. Although I would say that 9 out of 10 people giving out golf advice would probably say Gary Woodland.
Yeah, I'm one of those 9. I like both, man. I like Phil a lot just because if you look at his experience here, he loves this course. And you don't necessarily need to be extremely accurate off the tee. Yes, it's tree line and fairways, but there's not a ton of trees within the rough, and the rough is shorter. So a guy like Phil, short game and putting, who's got, maybe he's using more CBD oil than usual. He's getting that distance out. Is something that you can play. But I like Gary in this spot, again, with the corollaries and what he's been able to do in his short game, which has been an Achilles heel for him. If you just look at in the rolling report on Fantasy National, going from 24 rounds to 4, it's getting a lot better. So I do like Gary Woodland in this spot.
Johnson Wagner, the love meter, is it through the roof? Is the next question that comes from, let's see, Greg. I mean, he is too cheap for his home course. I'm just taking a shot. He's never really performed all that well in competitive play at Quail Hollow, and sometimes that really gets twisted with a lot of players that they play this course so often that they have the certain spots where they hit it, they know where they can get it on the green from, and there is that knowledge that comes along with it. But then they show up and it's under tournament conditions and stuff is a lot different, and maybe they get thrown off their game a little bit. I did use him in my DraftKings lineups. I think I have him in 2 of 20. Just as a flyer, I needed someone in the $6,000 area, and he's the guy that I decided to go with. Hopefully, he can return to his once elite putting form on Bermuda, though. He's just been bad at putting recently, which is very atypical for him.
Yeah, and again, just looking at the stats, because I don't have any Wagner. I get the home field advantage, but I like Adam Schenk, who's right there, 6,700. Max Homa at 66, I believe, is someone else that I'm using. So I'm using guys around Wagner. No love for me.
Value plays. This is for Chip McDaniel and Peter Malnati. Chip qualified at -5, and Peter Malnati has not missed his past 5 cuts with 2 top 25s. I believe one of those was at Heritage. Like, Malnati's going to live and die by his putter. This course just might be too long for him. He's not bad on the super duper long approaches, and the short game is like, all right, it's like slightly above average. But if he's not like top 10 putting in the field, he has an awfully hard time sustaining anything. And like, he has one bad putting round, he's going to miss the cut. He had top 23 at Valero, so 2 top 25s in a row, 44th at Genesis. I don't know. He's just not doing it for me this week. He's gained 4.5 and 4.6 strokes putting in his last 2. Eventually, he's going to have one of those like 1.1 weeks, and it's just going to be disastrous for him.
Yeah, exactly. He's right around that price range of the guys I just talked about. So the lack of being repetitive, I'm not on him.
How about Chip McDaniel? I'm not on him either.
No, not on him as well. I mean, again, this is to the point of how many lineups are you building right with the top and Rory? If you're just hammering Rory and going extremely overrate, then yeah, you have to spray a little bit down here. But I'd advise against that balanced approach.
So for me, and this next question kind of goes to that, Woodland, Finau, and Kokrak to start a lineup. Good trio. I think if you're going to use those guys, that's the way to deploy them because they're all going to be pretty highly owned, that if you put them all together, that's just not it's a very unique way to start a lineup because everyone else is going to be like, oh, I'll use Hideki and then Finau. Or then I'll use Sergio, or probably not Sergio, like Webb Simpson, and then Woodland, then Kokrak. I think that starting at Finau and working down is a good way to alleviate some of the ownership problems you might get for them. That start is not for me as I'm using none of those guys, but I understand why you would want to start it that way. It doesn't sound bad at all.
Yeah, and this goes to a point that Raza always makes too, right? If you want to build your lineups with a certain type of player and like that lineup, those first 3 years, those are bombers, right? You're going really all in this, like these guys need to be hitting the ball a ton. Woodland, Finau, and Kokrak all smashed it off the tee. Not a bad approach, right? And so if you want to keep with that form, and Raza is obviously very good at DFS, so you can easily deploy that strategy. And I don't mind it. Like I said earlier, I don't mind the Kokraks. If all of the ownership is going to be spread out in this range, I don't mind that lineup starting with Finau.
Next question is about Johnson Wagner as well. It's from Greg. What is Wagner's ownership looking like? Seems everyone is flocking to him. I have him at 3% and maybe just even lower. That could just be the bubble talking. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I have no feel for that. So same here.
Next one, Jordan. What do you guys think of Michael Thompson? His finishes look good, but I don't think I've ever seen him hit a shot on TV. I mean, that's probably fair. Let's see. I don't even really know what he's been up to like the past 2 events. I know he had his hot run through the West Coast swing. Everyone got on him at Honda. He faltered on Sunday, and he's just been kind of like for the last little bit. He was 10th at Heritage, I guess. A lot of putting. I mean, that's always going to be his thing. Like, he rolls it well on Bermuda. He had 8.5 strokes putting at Honda for a 16th place finish. Almost 5 at Heritage for a 10th place finish. I just don't know if he has the game for some of these longer courses. Like, the last 2 long courses he's played at, API and Valspar. Valspar is not a long course, but a hard course. Missed the cut at Valspar, missed the cut at API. Yeah, I'm not feeling Michael Thompson here at all.
No, and there's other guys right around this range, and he's a guy like to that point. Like, we haven't really seen him hit a golf shot, and that's a bigger discussion, right? That we can talk about for days in terms of seeing actual golf shots. But Wyndham Clark is right around the cage. I'd rather play these guys a little bit more than Michael Thomas. I get it; he jumps off the stat page, right? Because he's had these decent performances, but just not at this type of course. Decent at the players, but not for me.
Adam Hadwin is the topic of the next question from Robbie J. He said Adam Hadwin is popping in his model. What do you do? That means you've weighted strokes gained off the tee over driving distance significantly, par 5 scoring, which he's been really good at over like the past 2 months, and approaches from beyond 200 yards. He's really good in those 3 things. He has been ass at everything else. I really worry about, I once thought that Adam Hadwin had like one of the elite short games around, and for a while he did. Yeah. And that's gone completely the other way, that he's going to be accurate, but if those irons aren't clicking and he's missing greens, he's fucked.
Yeah, what happened? I mean, like, he was so good with this putter and around the greens, and it's gone the exact. Maybe he's got an injury that we don't know about. I know he did last year, right? I forget what it was, if it was like a wrist or something. But I can't figure him out. And if to everyone's point, like, how many outs? I think when you look at in terms of these guys and what they're able to do, like, if his game isn't exactly where it is and he's not scoring extremely well on these par 5s and these sharp par 4s, he doesn't have a really good shot. Rick Gehman talks about this too, right? How many outs do these guys have? He doesn't have much. And if he can't hit the ball out there, then I don't think he's going to be able to compete.
Yeah, the driving distance has been up for Hadwin this year. Like, he's 56 in this field right now in terms of overall driving distance. But I don't think that he does enough with his irons or short game to bail himself out. So I'll be off that. I'd like to see him like get the irons rolling again. Like, Hadwin's such a form player. Like we saw when he built up to his win, he got progressively better and better and better each week, and those irons were firing. So if he can maintain some of this distance and the strokes gained off the tee and just improve those parts of his game that he used to be good at, he's actually someone to look at. I don't know, for like a win at like Bethpage or even the US Open, but he's the type of player that if he can get the grinder gear back going in him, that he could be okay. Has played well at Riviera in the past too, so that's not something just to scoff at, but not for me this week. Mickelson, Stenson, Woodland, pick 2. I'm going to go Mickelson and Woodland, I guess.
Yeah, same here. I was going to say no Stenson.
Okay. Have you guys ever looked into how often the highest price guy is actually in the winning lineup? I know Jeff Bergerson did a big study on it. I can't remember when it was, but it's like if Dustin Johnson is the highest price guy, just use him. Everyone else, it's just kind of dicey. But a lot of it has to do with lineup construction as well. Like if you take the highest price guy, what does that do to the rest of your lineup? So it's really tough. And frankly, I mean, the overwhelming favorite doesn't always win. So it's tough to see that too. I think it'd be interesting to see how often do one of the top 5 finishers and where do their placement points actually factor into a winning lineup. I think that's a better question to ask. Is Ricky Fowler good enough off the tee to win, or does he need to rely on his proficient iron game from 175 plus? He's good enough. Ricky's good at everything, to be perfectly honest with you. It never seems to get itself on the same page all at the same time. But independently, he does everything really well.
Yeah, and again, sort of going off of what I said before, is he has the full game, which is what you need at Quail Hollow. You need all key strokes game metrics firing right around the greens. These are extremely fast. And hey, if you want really, really good putters on these extremely fast Bermuda greens, Ricky is your guy. Goes back to what you were saying too, and sort of like the questions that we got earlier in the show is, how do you want to construct your roster? Ricky's always going to be a popular play no matter where he goes. And so if you want to eat that chalk of about 18 to 20% at just on average, then be ready to do that. But yeah, he's just good he's just good all around player.
Next one, I'm a sucker for Kyle Stanley. Maybe it's the first name. This is from Kyle, but he seems to be starting to play better. Thoughts? Yeah, I need to be playing a little bit better, and Kyle Stanley does not get it out there off the tee. Well, he does gain strokes off the tee. He doesn't quite get it out there all that far enough for me, so I just lean Bomber over Kyle Stanley for me this week.
Yeah, and he can't putt. He can't putt at short distance, which, again, it's going to be really hard for everyone to putt this week. But Trey Mullinax, to your point, go with the Bombers. He's right there. I like him a lot more in that price range.
Yeah, I think he's a pivot play for sure. He's just not one that I want to get to. And Bermuda is his worst putting surface, so that's something to look into as well. DFS Tavern, shout out DFS Tavern. Do you think there will be a burned effect from golfers missing the cut at the RBC or the Masters and lower ownership potential? I don't know, to be perfectly honest with you. I doubt it, though. Like, at the Masters is one thing, but there's only so many good players in this field. Like if you would put the Masters field up against the same field the next week, then no one would own Paul Casey and Justin Rose. It feels like there's been enough time now that where they're 2 of the top 8 players in this field that they're just going to get ownership because of that.
Yeah, it sort of works in the opposite with the Zurich being, there's no contest on DraftKings. It works in that way where if there was a tournament, if this was right after RBC, I think that's a good question. But because there's been enough time, it sort of works in reverse where it resets the entire field, right? As opposed to some of these golfers. Again, like we talked about earlier with the stupid quote from Justin Rose, don't read into that. The ownership's going to be there on these guys.
Boban asks, any love for big Wyndham Clark this week, either straight bets or on DK? I'm using him on DK, and I bet him his first round leader, so I am somewhat invested, yeah.
Yeah, I love Wyndham Clark. Again, you look at his distance. He's got distance, strokes gained par 5. Is there birdie or better gain? I'm looking over the last 24 rounds. And I mentioned earlier is that when you get him on a fast Bermuda surface, where we saw at Honda, he gained strokes putting each round. So when you look at all of these things considered, and you look at where he is in price range, I think you look at what Aaron Wise. They're not the same player. I know they went to the same college, but they're not the same player. We saw that last year with Aaron Wise getting a runner-up. These long shots, and I think Wyndham Clark's at 175. They can contend here because you have these short par 4s, because you have these par 5s. You can score. Now you have to avoid bogeys, but you can score on this type of course. And so I really like Wyndham Clark this week.
Dud asks, who do you like to win it all? I mean, despite who I went over and listing my bets at the beginning of the show, just click on the cheat sheet at the bottom. Those are the bets. So you can go find it there. Andrew, where is the industry on Sungjae Im this week? Is API a good corollary for Quail? I don't think API is the best corollary. It has the length, and obviously Rory has won it both, and it has the fast screen, so there are elements of it. I prefer Riviera to this, though. That'd be the main one that I'm looking at. I don't know where people are on Sungjae. I use Sungjae. I have been like 6 to 20 lineup, so I'm willing to go back.
Yeah, he's another guy that I'll continuously play on DraftKings. His price really doesn't get higher than this, right? And again, a lot of people were on him, and he missed the cut, and I forget what tournament that was at, but where he like 4-putted within like 5 or 10 feet, so that might scare some people off. But I like Sungjae. I like Lewis Glover. I like that price range. Like I mentioned, there's going to be a ton of ownership in this price range across all of these guys, and I think at 15%, if you get Sungjae, who's clearly shown that he's able to hang with these guys in these big tournaments, I like it.
Boban again asks, are there any Cust Mayo Thrones podcasts coming back? No, they will not be coming back. Cust has been put on Game of Thrones timeout because his only takes are just to get attention for himself. He doesn't even believe what he's saying anymore, so I don't even want to talk to the guy about it. I probably will do another one with Tommy G at some point because that was a lot of fun. That's a fun debate instead of just some one person crying that stuff isn't going exactly how they want it to go. And then become a fucking writer on the show, pal. Figure it out. The movie ranks will be coming back, though. I have a long list of stuff to do with that. I really enjoyed it. If people haven't watched the 1999 Best Movie Ranks, I thought that was a good show. People really seem to enjoy it. We might do another year. We might do other stuff. I have some Best Sports Movie Ranks coming out, too. I'm going to wait till I go on vacation and just release all that stuff. So, I'll have the shows for when I'm gone. Reed, you know how I am. I'm never going to leave the viewers without content, even if I'm not here producing new content. Kevin asks, any concern over Bud Colley? I mean, there's always concern about Bud Colley and his driving distance. Assuming we'd be banking more on his scrambling and hoping he can smash the short par 4s, that's exactly what I'm going with. He kills short par 4s. He's one of the best scramblers on tour, and he plays hard courses. And for a shorter guy off the tee, plays long courses really well. But when you see winning scores around like 7, 8, 9 under par, that's more like Bud Colley's terrain because he's so good at saving par that I don't necessarily. If I thought Bud Colley was going to win, I would have bet him to win. I didn't, but I think he can make the cut here and churn out like a top 30, something like that. And that's all you're really asking for him at his price point.
Yeah, and just to go off of what you were saying, I think HV3 is a nice play, and HV3 is going to garner more ownership than Bud Colley, and he's a little cheaper, so I think people are going to go to that. But yeah, with Bud Colley, right, obviously coming off of that car accident last year into playing more, and I think we saw him earlier in the season pop a little bit where he's got these top 25s, and he had chances to kind of the courses and chances to get a top finish to see, okay, well, can this guy bring it back? But at this course, I think it's a little bit too tough where you can only rely on your short game. That's going to be a little bit harder for me. And there's only a couple of short par 4s, right? Again, they're risk reward. We don't know yet what his strategy on those holes are. Is it to go for the green and then potentially 2-putt for birdie? We don't know. And so all those things considered, I'm not playing them. I'd rather play the local kid in HV3 and eat the ownership there.
Let's see here. From David, I'm using Genesis, Farmers, and Valspar as correlated courses this week. Based on those courses, I saw myself really going to Charles Howell III in the 8K range. The one big thing you have to remember about those two courses is that Charles Howell dominates on the West Coast, and 2 of those are on the West Coast. And he just putts really well on POA as opposed to any other putting surface. So that's one thing to watch out for. I believe he was 22nd here, 21st here a year ago, but he was like 71st at the PGA Championship 2 years years ago, miscuts. Listen, he's a cut maker, and I don't think he's a bad play whatsoever. Just unless he's cheap, he's never really a part of my brand because I'm going to be taking Ben Ann and Luke List and JB Holmes in that range instead of Charles Howell III. I mean, Charles Howell III might be the better play, but those are my guys, and those are who I'm sticking with.
Yeah, I like CH3, like you mentioned, on the West Coast, or in majors, because we get him at, like you mentioned, a really cheap price. And that's what you kind of want in those lower price ranges, is to get that cut equity up. And that's what CH3 is. He's a guy that always turns out these cuts. He makes these cuts. Like you mentioned, in that price range, I don't want guys necessarily just to make the cut, which would be nice, I think, as a foundation. I want guys who are going to be able to get me birdies, going to be able to get it out there on the par fives, because there will be bogeys on this course. And I want those guys that can score. We've seen it a lot, right? We've seen guys not necessarily potentially do well at finishing position, but do well with scoring with birdies or better. And I like guys like Sanjay, the guys in this price range, a little bit more. Free
time. What are your thoughts on Aaron Wise this week? Really want to put him into my core, but I'm still hesitant. I think there's no reason to really shy away from it. I'm doing it just because he was one of my final cuts from my rosters. I know Feinberg bet him to win. Obviously, he was second here last year. The turn at the Masters was really nice to see, pumping out a top 20. I think this course suits him really well. I mean, I would not try to talk anyone out of Aaron Wise, but I'm not going to be over here advocating for him either.
Right, like who's better, in your opinion, Killer Keith or Aaron Wise?
Killer Keith.
Exactly, and he's $300 cheaper. So I'd rather go there. Obviously, he's won, but does he have another win under his belt? Maybe. But he's putting a lot better too. Keith Mitchell is, and Aaron Wise again with the runner-up finish last year. I think you just look at Aaron Wise, you say, okay, well, what courses are like Trinity Forest? And this course, right, where you can just bomb it off a tee, you're going to go to Aaron Wise. And I don't necessarily think that's the only thing you look at. I'd rather play Keith Mitchell.
Boban says, any love for Castro, Lee, or Hadley for DK or first-round leader bets? Obviously not for first-round leader bets because they didn't make my 11 first-round leader bets. I think they're interesting, but I didn't use any of those guys at all. I went with a course history guy. I actually played Streb instead of Castro.
Yeah, I'm not on those guys. Was Hadley the other one that he mentioned?
Yeah, Hadley. I worry that if he has to chip, it's going to be real problematic.
Right, exactly. So, no, I'm not on those guys. So I'll just leave it at that.
Ryan says, thinking of taking up a new strategy and just completely fading the public. Every time the community jumps on someone, they seem to stink it up. From a betting perspective, how dumb is my logic? It's a great way to save money. Trust me on that one. That's probably the move.
Yeah, well, I mean, why not, right? Obviously, it moves the lines for better or worse, but don't fade the public just to be contrarian, just to do it to be cute. And if you like a guy a lot, and so does the public, especially in the betting market where ownership doesn't really, or amount of people doesn't really matter right now, I would ward against that. But yeah, if you want to save money, do it.
Jordan says, what do you guys think about HV3? I bet him as first round leader. You liked him up. We just kind of talked about him a little bit.
Yep.
Is Kyle Stanley sneaky this week or stupid? We talked about Kyle Stanley, probably stupid. Let's see. That's a question that's already been asked. You start asking the same question twice, you'll get banned for life. Just know that. Or if you say something stupid, you will be banned for life. I haven't banned anyone yet. I got the banning finger ready to go, Reed. So
yes.
Let's see. This guy says that his Hadwin's injury is just called marriage, I think. I've been doing significantly better in my life since I got married, so it's not a downfall for every single person. Gary Woodland, one of my 4 picks for the weekend. Thoughts? That's great, man. I don't really care who you pick, and we've talked about him a bunch of times. Ownership projections for Wyndham Clark seems to be everyone's sleeper pick this week. I actually don't know. Let me look that up.
I got him at a couple percent.
I got him at 10%.
Yeah, I mean, is that, again, that goes to your question too? Is that just the stat guys and people who?
No, I think that's going to be a thing.
Yeah. Okay, if that's the case, then yeah.
Because you got the narrative about driving distance. When people look up driving distance, you're going to see Wyndham Clark inside the top 10, and he's cheap enough that people will think he's a pivot off of Trey Mullenix, and then they'll both just end up at double-digit percentages. And I have Mullenix, him, and Michael Thompson as the 3 highest owned guys of like that 75 range, and like in the lower 10, that a lot of people are using Matt Jones apparently, and Sam Burns. Sam Burns is another one up there too. Any love for Sung Kang this week? Yeah, I always got love for my man Sung Kang. I used him on DK. I bet him as first round leader. If we're gonna go with a Riviera corollary, that's actually one that I do like a little bit, and he's sneaky long off the tee, and people don't seem to realize that.
Do you know why he withdrew at RBC?
No idea.
Yeah, no idea. So I was going to say, if we did know if there was something that, we could sort of read the tea leaves, then I would say maybe play that angle a little bit. But yeah, always love for Sun Kang.
Nick Watney question. He came second place here last year. So, Nick Watney is someone to keep on your radar, I suppose. Ownership and thoughts on Nick Watney. I just don't like the way he's been playing coming in. One of the reasons I was on him last year in this spot was the decent course history, the way that he shapes the ball off the tee, his history at corollary courses, all really matched up well. And that could definitely come back to fruition. But he's coming off missed cuts in 3 of his past 4 starts. Last year, he was actually looking good. What was his final? I want to make sure that I'm right on this before I actually say that. Last year, coming into Wells Fargo, actually had back-to-back missed cuts, but he had a 14th, 28th, 14th, 14th right before that. His results this year have been 39th miscut, 51st miscut, 37th miscut, and even at the Farmers, he was 72nd. He doesn't seem to have the same form rolling in. Maybe this rekindles something, but I'm not going to take that chance. I have him at 4% ownership, by the way, as a projection.
Yeah, and if you look into those missed cuts, man, he is losing a ton of strokes off a tee.
Yeah.
Like 7 out of his last 10 tournaments.
And that's actually a really good point, because when he was on his run of good play coming in last year, he was gaining a whole bunch of strokes off the tee.
Yeah, exactly. And so, again, yes, he's a contrarian play because of that, right? We're not going to be on him. I don't think the industry is going to be on him. But I never get Nick Watney right, so don't listen to me, but I'm not going to play him.
Chandler says, thoughts on JB and Keegan. I'm on JB. I'm off of Keegan.
Yeah, same here.
Okay. Tom, Ollie is number 3 in my model. Thoughts on why I'm the worst at DFS? I think you just need to start weighting strokes gained hats a little bit more in your model, and maybe it'll spit out some realistic results.
Yeah, we waited driving down. That's a Feinberg special though, right? He always bets him, or doesn't always, but yeah, you waited. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Feinberg just brings him up every week. I have no idea. I guarantee you, Jeff secretly bets an extra 15 guys a week that he doesn't want to tell me about.
Yeah, well, I mean, you waited probably driving distance, par 5s probably. You waited pretty much heavily in your model, but like I said, I never bet Ollie, so no for me.
Let's see. Webb and Day, the lowest owned of the top guys this week. Not really. Day will be the lowest owned of the plus 10K guys, but not by much. He might be 4th when all is said and done. I have him around 13, 14% ownership. I have Webb around 12. Sergio and Stenson are the two low. Are going to be clearly the two low owned, higher price guys this week. Everyone else is kind of around each other in that 13 to 16 tier. And we know the margin of error on ownership projections can kind of go either way. So it's just more of a crapshoot at this point. It's not hey, everyone's going to be 17% owned. Jason Day is going to be 2% owned. He's going to carry ownership. He is the defending champ here. People forget how much that factors into your casual player's mindset too.
Yeah. And again, you've mentioned this earlier too, is that this is extremely top heavy, where we see talent. And so that ownership, to your point, is going to spread in that 12 to 13 across a bunch, unless you get the Finals and some of these guys, the rookies that will garner just more because of who they are and just the public opinion on them. But it's going to be spread out.
Oh, Ponderosa Sports is chiming in with a whole bunch of stuff that I did not ask. These are not questions, and no one came here to get your answers, pal. You are banned for life.
Nice.
It's like a drug. I need to do it. Thoughts on Pat Perez? None. Thoughts on Bill Haas? None. Don't play those guys.
Yeah. No. I thought Perez was done with the Achilles, but I guess
so did I. Apparently he's just back now. So I'd still be pensive on that. At least see Pat Perez hack some darts on the course, get himself acclimated to being back full-time on tour, and then we can talk Pat Perez. Bill Haas is just, oh my God.
No.
It's not, Ben Raza wasn't on the show this week, so I don't feel obligated to play Bill Haas.
Right. No, no way. If you get Bill Haas in a really short course and a course where you can, gain strokes, a short course where around the green is going to matter, but I'm out of Bill Haas.
Oh, this guy asked, this is an interesting question. Who are some good Bermuda putters? I can look that up for you right now. I mean, I don't want to just talk off the top of my head. I'll tell you who's been good on Bermuda lately. And I would actually look more at fast greens over just Bermuda in general this week. I think that's more important just because everyone kind of misses putts on these courses. So over the past 50 rounds, strokes gained putting on Bermuda: Denny McCarthy, Michael Thompson, Sam Burns, Jason Day, Charles Howell III. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lindheim, Wagner, Malnati, Hostler, Perez, Webb Simpson, Cameron Champ. Those are your top guys putting on Bermuda over the past 50 rounds. 50 rounds is a pretty big sample, though. as it just pertains to just Bermuda courses. Let's shrink that down a little bit. Let's say 24, because I think if we do 50, that carries us like the past 3 years. So if we just shrink the sample down, you can do all this on Fantasy National and find this all out yourself too. So over the past 24 rounds, it's Day, McCarthy, Burns, Fowler, Reevy, Vaughn, Taylor, Cameron Champ, Michael Thompson, Bozelli, Wyndham Clark. So guys like Charles Howell III are now down to like the 30s. So they were really good on Bermuda. They've been trending downward. Still okay, but not as good as they once were. So if we look at the shorter size sample, it's very clear that Day, McCarthy, Burns are the three guys that really excel on Bermuda. And Day just excels at putting in general. The guy's lights out every single week. Perhaps you can find some insight on Im versus Clark, both rookies, but Im gets more love based on his DK pricing, yet Clark has been more consistent. That is not true. No. Clark has not been anywhere near as consistent as Sung Jae Im.
Yeah, and Clark, isn't this Clark's like second year, kind of, as like he did he was on the swing season, had some, maybe it's his first full year. But he's played in tournaments of recent. It's not just entirely his first year. So he's got some, but yeah, he's wildly inconsistent, right? Sanjay's just been firing these solid finishes. Again, like I mentioned, in either these secondary, tertiary tournaments, but also in better tournaments that he's been playing well. So M over Clark in terms of consistency.
And the big thing here with Wyndham Clark is he bombs it a ton and doesn't always get a bunch of strokes off the tee, which is kind of problematic, but he gains so much putting that it's kind of ridiculous. Those are his good finishes. Like his just starting at the beginning of the season. Let's start with the OHL when Kuchar won. So miscut, 65th, miscut, 18th, 35th, 60th, 10th, 7th, that's a good run. 37th, 20th, and 54th. Not bad. Sungjae has miscuts thrown in, but starting at OHL, we go miscut, 37th, 16th, 12th, 52nd, 7th, miscut, 51st, 3rd, miscut, 4th, 7th, 20th. Like, if Sungjae is like not missing the cut, he's inside the top 15. So I'd say that's the difference. And his big downfall is when he has a bad putting week, he misses the cut. But he's so lights out and consistent in all three facets of tee to green that I just think he's significantly safer play. That's why he's priced up. It's both the finishes and the overall consistency, not relying on the putter that he gives you. I would say that's the big difference.
Yeah, and those top finishes aren't just at like Corrales. Those are like at API, Valspar, which is, again, Valspar not necessarily the same type of course, but you have decent players like Paul Casey and these guys. These finishes are of notoriety, and again, it's flipped, right? It's like you mentioned, right? If you want these guys, and we've been hammering this point every single show, ball strikers who potentially cannot putt can have a nice putting week and then can potentially win. It's exactly opposite with Wyndham. And Sam Burns is another guy too that is getting a lot of buzz, is that he needs to be putting lights out, which he has been, to really get these top finishes. Wyndham Clark, where we see birdie or better game, where we see stroke same par 5, how much of it is right attributed to his putting. I like it enough to play him, obviously, and some of the different corollaries that I look into when doing my research. But yeah, when you look at the consistency, Sungjae has top finishes in some pretty elite fields.
Talk me out of Danny Willett. I mean, I'm never going to talk you out of Danny Willett. He did have a good turn pretty much at Torrey Pines earlier in the season. He just seems to be a bit off. I do like him at these harder courses, but his around the green game has really started to struggle a little bit. And I don't like to see that out of a guy who I want to be a grinder. I just prefer Danny at a shorter course too. I know he won at the Masters, but it's when the wind was up and hitting the ball low and short was kind of the move that year. Probably why he's not done so well at the Masters since then, or even before then, that I don't know. I'm just off Willett this week. If I'm going to go that low, just give me a guy with bombing upside rather than pretty good ball striking, good approaches, but not necessarily on long approaches.
Yeah, same here. Danny Willett, again, long approach, right? If you want to play that angle where he's going to be hitting his approach shots from 200 plus, and be really key in that area, but then he's got to sink putts, right? He's got to be able to. He can't necessarily rely on his distance because he doesn't have any. So that's going to be a tough play, a tough narrative for me. We talked about some of the guys in the 6K range that I like a lot more. So out on Danny.
Let's see. Any love for the other Rory? Old Sab. Sab's playing really well. I considered throwing him on my first round leader card, but the odds didn't make sense for me, and I just had too many guys on there in general, so I passed on him. I don't hate him. I don't love him. Pass for me. I like all the other guys in his DraftKings area way better.
Yeah, I mean, great around the greens, right? Yeah. That's what we like, and that's what you need here. But I'm out on OG Rory.
Dave, what do you think of? I'm eventually gonna maybe I'll just call him like Hammer and Hank or something like Laboidia. Leboida? Is that how we're pronouncing it?
I pronounce it Leboida.
I keep calling him the Bod. That's just much better. I'm just dropping the I from there and giving him a nickname. What do you think of Leboida or Tom Lovelady? Lovelady only rates out well in driving distance. That's it. Like, he's absolute trash everywhere else. And no on both of them. Leboida just isn't long enough for me. Good short game, though.
Yeah, out on both. But yeah, call him the Bod. That's way better than Hank Leboida.
Eric says, Danny Lee. I know it's hard to predict which Danny Lee will show up, but he seems to be starting his annual Danny Lee heater. Thoughts? I really gave him a hard look. I wanted to be in on Danny Lee. I have to go see if I actually ended up throwing him back in. No, I didn't. He was my last cut in that lower $7,000 area. I ended up going with Sam Burns instead. I had room for one of them. It was like Bud Colley, Sam Burns, Wyndham Clark, Danny Lee. They were all kind of on the spectrum for me, and I didn't want to use a ton of those guys anyway. So like 3 of 20 lineups that if I added in Danny Lee, now I'm only getting like a few of those guys in one lineup. And I just, if you're going to play 20 lineups, I see no real reason to play someone in one lineup. That seems kind of crazy. So someone had to be cut to concentrate ownership for me on those other guys, and it was Danny Lee. I am worried that I might be missing a Danny Lee heater though. Yeah,
and his odds too, right? His odds to win this are what, like in the hundreds, I believe. So I think, yeah, Danny Lee, I see where he's at. I see what you want to do with this, but a guy that's in this price range, I like Cage Lee better, who is, I think, around the same price tag. But Curtis Luck, I mean, he's a guy that it keeps on putting lights out, kind of in that Sam Burns narrative where we've seen him play a little bit
The
better.
difference is Sam Burns gets it out there off the tee. And I was going to say Andrew Luck. Curtis Luck and his man bun does not.
I was going to say, I probably don't like his man bun, but again, you got to find where these necessary cuts are. Again, like I mentioned earlier at RBC, I like Sam Burns and his putting, and he keeps that going. But Curtis Luck would be someone as opposed to Danny Lee that I like a little bit better in that price range.
Zach Johnson ownership. I have him around, is it 4%? I got him at? Yeah, 4% ownership. I'm using him. I don't mind Zach Johnson. He's one of the few shorter hitters that I actually went to, and it seems like he's coming in super sneaky.
Yeah, and if you want to go away from the bomber narrative, like Zach Johnson is the epitome of what type of golfer that you would want, right? Like a really good with his long irons. Around the green game is fantastic. We know that. And he can putt, right? He can putt now those 5 to 10 putts over the past 24 rounds, not necessarily great, but he's a guy that, not to my knowledge, right, without looking at the stats on Fantasy National, he's not that bad at par 5 scoring as well. So I like Zach.
Next question is, thoughts on using Malnati as my last guy. That's from Josh. We talked about Malnati. We're both out on him. Tom Kelly, balance build, the way to go with no value. That's how I'm building. It sounds like that's how you're building as well.
Yep, same here.
Kevin says, fade Finau. I mean, we are fading Finau. I'm fading Finau. I've talked about that. That's an ownership play for me. His body language didn't look good last week. Oh, sorry, body language, doctor. Sorry, you're so much in the fucking know. Good God. Thoughts on Kelly Craft Pass?
Body language. That's great.
Thank you for banning him. Oh, the guy I banned ages ago. No problem, Chandler. He was just clogging up the chat. How popular do you think Malnati will get? What's the fuck is with everyone in Malnati?
God, I don't know.
Like you could pay this guy to like come play golf with you for like $50.
Yeah, just don't play Malnati.
Or play. Listen, you want to play Malnati? I am at 1% ownership, so I don't know how popular he's going to be here, but I don't know. Go nuts with Malnati, and if he wins, you win. If he wins, I lose, and that's where we're going to be at.
Yeah, no, I have no feel for Malnati, so for me, no.
Let's see. Under 7K play. Saw myself going to Blixt and Leboida. I think Blixt had like good course history at Genesis or something like that. Blixt is such a wild card that I always just, unless it's a Pete Dye course, that's the only time I start to give him consideration. So no for me.
Yeah, he does everything within those considerations at Pete Dye's with the flat stick, right? He's putting really well, so no Jonas for me.
Any thoughts on the new putting grip rules and how they've affected putting stats? It's too short of a sample to make any sort of judgment on that so far. And putting is so much confidence-based anyway. Like we saw Bubba for a while end up putting really well, same as Bryson. And then they just go into a funk for like 4 weeks where they can't make a fucking 3-footer. So it's really tough to figure that out. Mitchell's got a big win. Great ball striking in 6th at Bay Hill. Should be in the 85 to 87. No, I agree. That's why I'm playing Keith Mitchell.
Yep, exactly, right? He's incorrectly priced. That's why we like him.
He is going to be pretty chalky, though, is the one thing that if you did, that'd be the only case to really get away from him. And I do worry about his around the green game, that it just might be too tough for him here, but he's shown a propensity to at least score. So if he makes the cut, he is definitely going to outperform wherever he finishes in DraftKings value. And if we're going to talk about, like, there are eagles available, there are short par fours available, Killa Keith is a guy that can take advantage of both those. We even saw it at the Masters where he ended up giving them all back, making bogeys, but he was eagle in everything. Like, the par fives are his bread and butter, and he can take advantage of that here, and potentially that's how he gets through the weekend. All about the balance build. Let's see, Pat, can you say freaking or freaking? I'm at work. I don't fucking care, pal. Put on some fucking headphones and deal with it. What sort of show would I be if I wasn't fucking swearing the entire time? So about the balance build, what salary do you generally start at? I think it depends on the guys that you want to go at. I just use kind of Casey as my anchor. I did play, I think I have like 8 Justin Rose lineups, so those are like modified balance build because he's a bit cheaper of the expensive guy, so I didn't have to go as low at the bottom. But I played a whole bunch of lineups where it's like Casey, Phil, Reed, on list someone else, or even dip past like the secondary of the high 8,000 guys and use like the JB Holmes, Keith Mitchell's, Luke List, Ben and Zach Johnson, like that type of build. But if you want to start with Finau, start with Casey. And you can, like I said, you can do a modified version of this with Justin Rose where you go Justin Rose and then you don't have to go down to like Seb Straka, like $6,300. You can have your secondary, like your final piece guy, be like Trey Mullenix or Sam Burns, someone like that, and then fill out the pieces in the middle. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about balance builds.
Yeah, and it's preference, right? Like for me, Gary Woodland is someone that I'm starting as a sort of nucleus, if you want to use that as a balance, and it's a preference thing. If you, like you mentioned, if you don't want to use Seb, maybe opposed to first round leader like you did, I mean, you don't have to. I mean, theoretically, if the math and the arithmetic works, in the 8K, what we talked about earlier in the show, there are guys in the 8K range that we all like, that you can build a case for to be a guy that you really want to hammer in DraftKings or the betting market. So if you want to just hammer the 8K range and totally discredit the 9s and the upper elites, then I think that's a feasible strategy as well.
Patrick Reed, ownership thoughts. I have him projected around 7%. He's one of the lower owned guys of the 8K range. I love Patrick Reed this week. I'm in on that. Eric says, do you care if I work at a church? And I can assure you I do not. But I think it's reflecting very poorly that you're watching the show in a church. I mean, that's going to get you sent straight to hell, pal. I hate to tell you.
Yeah, I don't know if you follow Pat routinely, but I think in his bio, you refer to a place that the church wouldn't necessarily enjoy. So tread lightly if you're following Pat.
All right, we're basically out of questions here. So if you do have a question, first of all, smash the like button. That's one way to go with this. Then get your questions in right now. Reed and I can get to them here. We have an allotted another 5 minutes to go if you want to get into it. But Kyle asks, thoughts on Seb Straka or Max Homa as bombers under 6,600? I went with Straka.
I like Max Homa. Like you have to totally discredit some of these guys and their finishes and the recent form and kind of go off of the style in which these guys play. I like Max at 6,600. I like him. You know, if you don't want to go super low like I did with Sloan at like 6,200, he's a guy that I really like in that mid 6K range. HV3, I think he's at 7, right? And Adam Schenk are the other guys that I like in this lower range.
Oh, this is good. This guy's not even asking questions. He's just leaving comments. Steve, you're banned for life. Fuck you. What else do we got in here? Jacob says, thoughts on Sergio? Very low owned. Now, you made this case for Sergio earlier. Does that mean you're actually going to use him? Because I'm not still going to use him.
If that ownership for like Finau goes to like 25%, I right now I don't want to play Finau. When it's Wednesday night at like 11:59, I'm probably going to play Finau. If that gets to over 25-30%, I'll probably move some of those shares to Sergio.
Okay, I can see that. I probably won't. I'm probably locked in where I am just because I faded Finau to begin with. I feel like the guys that I've used, I don't need to go actively looking for a leverage play. But if you do have some of the chalkier players and want to mix it up in a few lineups with Sergio, I completely understand that. Adam Schenk? Question mark? I use Schenk. I use Schenk like every week. I feel like I'm a sucker for Schenk.
Well, he's always there in the like high 6K range. He makes the lineups. He cleans those up. So if you want to use the elites, he's a good anchor point. He stats out really nicely what you want here, and so yeah, I don't mind it. With 6,700, so you're putting him in what 2 of 20 lineups if you're doing it 20% or 15 to 13% ownership. It's not going to kill your lineups.
Thoughts on Chesson Hadley is my last guy. We both kind of said guy can't chip. That's going to be real problematic. Chandler says, have any plays you like for three ball betting day one? I never really bet round 1 3 balls. It's like I don't play round 1 showdown. I just like betting first round leaders. That's kind of where my action is. But if your sportsbook does pay ties out in full, I mean, I don't know what I haven't even looked at. I don't even look at the 3 balls, to tell you the truth, on day one. I just kind of look at them day 2, assess how they did day 1, and try to leverage. I like to do it more when you have more information. I think that round 2 3 balls is a far more beneficial market and a more vibrant market than first round 3 balls. So not for me. Yeah. Remy Lopez asks, what about Shez, Pat? Out on Shez. How about you?
No, I never play Shez.
All right. Free time. If Willett's too short here, maybe Cam Davis is a better pivot. Cam Davis kind of garbage, so watch out for that. Thinking a big week is coming for him in the near future. I used Cam Davis a bunch in like the swing season, and he does get the ball out there. Just the rest of his game is piss poor.
Yeah, I got no feeling for Cam Davis. Stay away. Like again, there's 156 players, so if you want to try and find the needle in the haystack with these guys, fine. But buyer beware, right? They're down here for a reason. So I got nothing for Davis.
Blix, we just went over Blix, both a pass from us. Did you guys talk about Berger yet? No, we haven't talked about Berger. I don't know what to do with that guy. I haven't played him since he missed the cut at wherever the hell it was on the last hole. I think it was Phoenix, and I was just like, screw this guy. And he really hasn't been all that good, despite what Feinberg says. Like, his best finish is like 36th. If you can get him through the cut, he's a viable play. But I just don't see where the upside falls with Daniel Berger, based on the players that he's around, who I do think have substantially more upside.
The SOB, man. I had ownership on that guy pretty heavily in terms of where he was at RBC and what happened to him. Like, he was on that leaderboard, he was close, but he just faltered. And around the green game is garbage right now. Obviously, he doesn't hit it. If it's the St. Jude Classic, play him, right? Because that's his course. He's won there twice already. But here, I'm just out on Berger. Par 4 scoring, those short par 4s, obviously he can score at, but he can't follow it up because his par 5 scoring is garbage. So I'm out on him.
He's made the cut at this tournament every year, but did miss at the PGA Championship in 2017. So if that's the way that you're looking at it, Dudley, the Dud. Any love for Sam Burns? I always love me some Sam Burns. I'm using Sam Burns. I bet him his first round later.
Yeah, I like Sam Burns. He's good. I guess I liked him a couple weeks ago. I like him this week because that Flasic is just firing. So I like it. Thoughts
on Chip McDaniel? Oh no, we're back to fucking Chip McDaniel again. No, I'm not playing him.
No Chip McDaniel. Why?
I mean, I'm telling you, if his name wasn't Chip, it was like James, no one would want to play this guy.
Right. Is that the same as if Ollie wore a hat, no one would want to play him?
Yeah. Like, or if Ollie was good, people probably wouldn't play him then. They only like him because he's bad.
Yeah, no Chip for me.
Listen, if Chip's your gut and that's the sleeper you want to go with it. Like, I'm using Alvaro Ortiz, and I know nothing about this guy besides the fact that he came 36th at the Masters. He's the good Ortiz, and he just turned pro. Like, it seems like he has more upside. But you got the feeling about Chip McDaniel? Go with Chip McDaniel. It's like the Peter Malnati guys. You want to go with Peter Malnati just because I'm not doing it, or I think it's stupid. I think tons of things are stupid. They turn it to be like the worst calls of all time. It happens every single week. So if those are the guys you feel, go with the guys you feel. I'm not playing your lineups for them. You're the one entering. Brian Herman thoughts. Here's one. Don't play Brian Herman.
No. He spotted some of these other corollaries. Played decent at Riviera in the past, but no way.
Do you guys know anything about Goggins at 6,100? I really don't. I believe he's a Euro Tour player, Matt Goggins.
Yeah. Well, like I said, why 6,100?
Oh, no, sorry. He plays on the Mackenzie Tour, the Asian and Australian Tour, and the Web.com Tour. He's played once this year at the Panama Championship on the Web.com Tour, and he missed the cut.
I got it. I feel like this is the same guy who tells us to play KJ Choi.
That guy was right.
I know. I was going to say he was right when we were just like, no, we're not going to do it. He was finally right. But there might be some guys in this chat right now that are just managing some of these guys to get their ownership and get their popularity up. No, I mean 6,100. Why?
Yeah.
Why would you want to do that?
Yeah. No love for the Gogs on this show. We'll see how he does. Kyle asks, he's asking about Ollie. We just talked about Ollie. We've talked about him like 3 times. Enough about fucking Ollie. Free time. Merton Trainer, also intriguing. I looked into him just as, he won at Corrales. He has a ton of distance off the tee. Not a terrible play, just didn't make my final cut. I don't really know anything about Merton Trainer. Hardly knew her.
Yeah, like who does, right? Like, again, I like, this is, like I said earlier, this is a huge field. The same way you would do some of these other ones, like let's use the Masters, for instance. Cut like at least half of these guys in terms of what you want to do. That's how I'm doing it. My core is very, very tight. And, a guy like Matt Trent, like I get it. I get that those stats can potentially pop for you guys, but I have much more faith in guys that I've seen in the past who are like in these lower 6K range that shows, but Trainer for me.
Shouldn't there be as much focus on the sub 7 guys as hitting the top right guys? Sub 7 guys make the cut every week. That's all you need. I understand it's a crapshoot figuring out. Well, that's the whole thing. Like you're just dealing with a series of like inconsistent and bad players down there that and listen, we're also producing content here. Most people, shockingly enough, do not click on the show because there's a picture of Peter fucking Malnati on the cover. It's because Rory is up there. Like, you have to find out that part too, the discussion. And even whether it's, I know about a ton of these guys. I don't know about everyone. I know everything basically there is to know about the top 25 guys in this field. And then the knowledge becomes lesser and lesser and lesser just because you don't see as much of these guys. We have so much experience with these top guys. They're more fun to talk about. And the 7K guys aren't going to win, generally speaking. One of the top guys is going to win. So you need to have that part figured out if you have any chance. Then the 6-6s have to come around later. And it's just far more difficult, like you mentioned. It's a crapshoot. That's why. But I feel like we do an extensive amount of time on the low 7s and 6K range.
Yeah, and then also just to your point, if you're looking at guys that we like in the 6K range and you're not necessarily using Fantasy National, we're all hostages to the stats that we have out there because we're not at the course. We're not watching at the driving range watching these guys strike the ball. We're not in the camp of these guys. So how the hell do we know what Seb Straka is doing? How the hell do we know like if Adam Schenk slept on his bed wrong? How do we know? As much as we can, we'll get the stats out there, right, for the guys that we like. But at the same time, if there's someone that you like, if you're on PGAtour.com and you're looking at these stats where the driving distance is there, the birdies are better are there, par 5 scoring is there, play these guys because if they hit, you're going to be in the right, and then you can tell us that we're wrong on Twitter, right? That's also part of the fun is tell us that we're wrong because that's where then we look at, okay, well, why did Martin Trainer hit? Why did he do well at this course as opposed to not doing well? Like, why did CP Pan hit at RBC?
Because you picked him. Because you picked him. That's why. He did it for you, Reid.
Thank God, because that's one of 1,000 picks that I've made, right? And so that's part of the fun is picking these guys that you don't necessarily think who are going to do well, that finally do well. And you can tell us that we're all wrong. It's part of the fun.
All right, we do need to get out of here. So rapid fire, one word or one sentence answers on this. Thoughts on Fratelli, please. I'm not using him.
Nope, not using him.
Who do you think is going to be the most chalky, Rose, Finau, or Kokrak? Finau, for sure.
Yeah, Finau.
Iron Man died in Endgame. Okay. I feel like everyone who, I haven't seen it. I don't really care. I did really enjoy. I know LaShawn McCoy put that out on Twitter earlier. Like the amount of 46-year-old unmarried dudes who you ruined my life. I thought that part was pretty funny, to tell you the truth. I've
been actively trying to stay away from spoilers. So whoever that is, you know what you can do.
Oh, sorry. So it was ruined for you?
Yeah, but it's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry, Reid. So
I'm just going to cry in the corner. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I'll give this guy a ban for life for you. How about that?
Do it. No, it's okay.
And the people who are out there spoiling this too are not only are they the 46 unmarried live in mom's basement people, they're also 500 pounds. So deal with that.
Forgot part of the detail.
Eric, why are people sleeping on the sub 7K range? Carlos Ortiz, Hank Laboidia, Julien Etienne, and Adam Schenk all seem like great value. Okay, Eric, calm down.
To name off all the guys in the 6K range.
Yeah,
great value.
I only use Shank of those guys. You can check out my cheat sheet on DK Playbook in the comment section and everything you want to find out the guys I love down there. Phil likes bombing it and only plays events he likes nowadays. Interesting. I like Phil. I've already talked about playing him. What do you think of Shank? I'm playing him. What do you think about Reeve? We're not playing him. Why is Fantasy National projecting Chip McDaniel in my top 20 ranks when he has no stats? I don't know. I don't know what you're waiting. If you just wait
Yeah.
recent form, I think he has like a decent finish. So that's all of his waiting because he has so few rounds to actually draw from. Thoughts on Ricky Fowler ownership? I got him around 16, 17, 18%. Had Winter Stanley, neither. Sabatini, pass. Just joined. Have you spoken about Malnati yet, Boban? I'm going to ban you for life. I don't care for your fucking jokes, all right? Thoughts on Michael Thompson? Already did that one. You can go back and watch. How do you feel about Hideki? We didn't even bring up Hideki this entire time.
Yeah, I think to that point, like he might be a nice pivot, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, great. He hits the ball a ton, right? He scores on par fives, and he's a guy who can't putt, but if he gets one of these these putting weeks where he can putt, he's a good pivot. He's at what, flat 10 or 10-1, so you're getting that a good, a decent price relief off these top guys. I don't like him. I usually like the bot, but I don't like him this week. So if you like him, play him.
Did you talk about Keegan? We did. We both passed on Keegan, I feel.
Yeah.
All
No
right. Where would you make your cut in the $7,000 range or $8K range? I don't quite understand the question. Mullenix or Burns? I like Mullenix a little bit more.
Yeah, same here for this course. Molnex, I think, sets up better.
How do you feel about Stenson? I don't love him here, but he was one of the 2 higher-owned guys that we projected for very low ownership. If you want to make a pivot, I decided to use Patrick Reed instead.
Yeah, I mean, again, you have to go with the fact that he's got to hit those long irons really well, which he does. But I just rather play the other guys in that price range.
Oh, this guy says Stanley or Hadwin. I believe I just said neither to that question. That means you are banned for life. A last second banned. Pat, can you please reference Harold Varner III as Big or just Harry V? I always call him Big Harry V when we go through it. Although, as I told Feinberg on Monday's show, if he was Harold Varner to the power of 3, Jeff would be all over him every single week. Rory or Rose? I mean, I think Rory has a better chance to win. I like the ownership break and the price point of Justin Rose better. I'm not betting either of them, but for DraftKings wise, I use a lot of Rose. I use no Rory. So that's the way that I will end this. What do you make of it?
Yeah, same as me. I mean, Rory obviously has recent form and just absolutely kills this course. Question needs some context. I like the ownership way better on Rose. If you want to play course history and just a guy who's killing it right now, play Rory. I personally am playing more Rose than Rory.
All right. That'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Reid Fowler. Tell everyone where they can check out your work and find you on the socials.
Yeah, Reid T. Fowler on Twitter and everywhere in between Instagram. Obviously doing amazing stuff over here at DK Live. If you didn't catch that draft show that Pat and I did with some other guys like Levy, it was a fantastic time. So it's not just golf. I know we're here for a golf show. It's also football and all the great stuff that we're doing over here at DK and DK Live. So make sure to tune in, but Reid T. Fowler everywhere.
Also, remember to smash the like button on your way out. And if you want to get into a draw for $20 DK, there are 2 ways to do that. You know what? Even 3 ways to do it. One is to go and watch the Kentucky Derby show where there's a whole bunch of giveaways. Reid, I know you and I do the shows every single week. That show whenever Cam is in studio, that's why we can only have him in like once, twice a year. The energy is absolutely through the roof. It's I don't know if it's the most informative show, but it's probably the funniest one we did all year.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Just watch Cam. If you're not a follower of Pat's over the years, Cam is one of the best. If I could have an inch of his or an iota of his energy levels, I'd be so much more successful because the guy is just clearly at the highest and the highs. Fantastic. Watch it. Even if, like you said, if you don't like what he's saying, what their picks and whatnot, it's just extreme entertainment. So watch it.
The cheat sheet for the bets is up on my Facebook page, facebook.com/thepme. Might as well give it a like while you're on there anyway. You can find my DK cheat sheet up on dkplaybook.com. All the links to this are in the comment section and description of this podcast and video, if that just makes things easier for you. And then if you click on one of the articles, all the links are at the top as well, which is also a way that I try to make things easier. Or if you just follow me on Twitter, I'll tweet it out 5,000 times a day. And then people will be like, where's the show? Is the show out yet? Like, nah, come on, man. Give your fucking head a shake. Also, join the Listeners League. For serious, though. It's $15 to play. No rake. There's $52.5 thousand guaranteed in the prize pool this week. We need to fill that up so we can increase the prize pool for the PGA Championships. So make sure to go do that if you want to get into a draw for 20 DK bucks. Like I said, watch the show with the Kentucky Derby. There's a whole bunch of giveaways for that. But like this episode, leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section. Tell me who your one and done is for the week. Then leave an iTunes review, 5 stars, something nice, and your DraftKings handle. And you too will be in a draw for 20 DK dollars. Winners announced on next Monday's show. I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for watching, and good luck at the Wells Fargo Championship. I'll see you next time.